I am Allison, 32 years old, and I have been dreading this family meeting for months. My siblings always had a way of making me feel small with their subtle jabs about my modest lifestyle. Little did they know the company I built from scratch had just sold for millions. I chose to drive a 10-year-old car and live simply because possessions never defined me. Their judgment about my worth was about to change dramatically today. The helicopter was just the beginning of their education. Before I dive into this story, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever been underestimated by your family. Trust me, what happens next is something you will not want to miss. Growing up as the middle child between my older brother, James, and younger sister Stephanie, was never easy. James, now 40, always embodied everything my parents valued. He followed the traditional path through an Ivy League college to a prestigious corporate executive position at a Fortune 500 company. His corner office in Manhattan and vacation home in the Hamptons were frequent topics at family gatherings. Stephanie, 28, took a different route to success by marrying Andrew Eyre to a regional banking fortune. Her picture-perfect wedding was featured in several local magazines, and her life of charity galas and country club memberships fulfilled my parents' dreams for their youngest daughter. Then there was me, Allison, the middle child, who never quite fit the mold, where James was calculated and traditional, and Stephanie was socially savvy and conventional. I was always questioning and seeking something different. My parents tried their best to provide equally for all three of us, but it became clear early on that my siblings and I had fundamentally different values. During high school, while James was student body president and Stephanie was homecoming queen, I was starting my first small business selling custom websites to local shops. My parents viewed it as a cute hobby that would eventually give way to a sensible career or marriage. When I announced I wanted to skip college to pursue entrepreneurship, the family reaction ranged from disappointment to outright intervention attempts. "You will regret this decision for the rest of your life," my father had said, refusing to make eye contact during that tense dinner 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I left our hometown of Cedar Springs with just $200 in my pocket and a determination to prove my path was valid. My family predicted I would be back within 6 months, humbled and ready to accept their version of success. When I did not return, they created their own narrative that I was struggling but too proud to admit it. That my business ventures had failed. That I was barely scraping by in some tiny apartment in the city. In reality, my journey had been challenging but ultimately successful beyond anything they could imagine. After several failed startups and nearly going bankrupt twice, my tech security company gained traction with a patent that revolutionized data protection for small businesses. 3 years of 18-hour workdays and ramen noodle dinners eventually led to a company valued at over $50 million. 6 months ago, a larger tech firm acquired us, making me wealthy beyond my wildest expectations. Yet, I told none of this to my family. Each holiday call or rare visit home, I listened to their assumptions about my struggling lifestyle without correction. When James asked if I needed help with rent or when Stephanie offered me her old designer clothes, I simply thanked them politely and changed the subject. It was easier than explaining why I chose to live modestly despite my success, that I valued experiences over possessions, that I was building schools in developing countries rather than buying mansions. The call about my parents came 3 weeks ago. Mom had fallen and broken her hip, and Dad's early-stage dementia was progressing faster than expected. They needed more care than they could afford on their retirement savings. James had called a family meeting to discuss options and financial responsibilities. His voice held the usual thinly veiled judgment when he asked if I could manage to come home and contribute whatever I could to their care. Now, as my flight prepared to land in the small regional airport near Cedar Springs, anxiety churned in my stomach. For years, I had maintained the emotional distance their judgment created, building a life and friendships with people who valued me for my ideas and character rather than my status. But family has a way of reducing even the most accomplished adult back to their childhood dynamics. Would this visit finally be the time I revealed the truth about my success? Or would I continue to protect myself from their inevitable reactions, the shock, the awkward recalibration of our relationships, the questions about why I had kept it secret. As the plane touched down, I was still undecided. My parents needed help, and I had already arranged for the best care money could buy. But my siblings had no idea, and the family meeting promised to be another exercise in their condescension. My hands tightened around my deliberately average handbag as I prepared to step back into the complicated web of family expectations and judgments. The morning of my flight, I stood before my closet in my downtown loft, deliberately choosing the most understated items I owned. I selected faded jeans, a simple sweater with a small hole near the cuff, and comfortable sneakers that had seen better days. My assistant, Margot, watched with bewilderment as I packed similarly modest outfits in an old duffel bag rather than my usual sleek luggage. "You are worth $50 million, and you are dressed like a college student going home for the weekend," she observed, holding my usual itinerary folder. "And you are taking a commercial flight instead of the company jet because this is how they expect me to arrive," I replied, tucking my hair into a simple ponytail. "They have a very specific image of who I am, and I am not ready to disrupt that quite yet." On the flight, I found myself reflecting on why I maintained this facade. The truth was complicated. Part of me enjoyed the freedom of being underestimated. In the business world, I had learned that people who underestimated me often revealed more than they intended, giving me the upper hand in negotiations. With my family, their low expectations meant I never had to justify my choices or defend my success according to their metrics. But there was a deeper reason, one I rarely admitted even to myself. Their judgment had hurt me profoundly. When I first left home, their dismissal of my dreams cut deeper than I could acknowledge. Each patronizing comment about my phase of entrepreneurship. Each suggestion that I should settle down like Stephanie or get a real job like James had accumulated into a protective wall I built around my true self. "Your problem, Allison, is that you have always been impractical," my brother had said during our last family Christmas 5 years ago. "Some people are meant to lead and innovate. Others are meant to follow. There is no shame in accepting your limitations." That night, I had stepped outside to hide my tears, pretending to take a call while I composed myself. The irony was that earlier that same day, I had closed a deal that expanded our company internationally. My team had celebrated with champagne while I prepared to fly home to be treated like the family disappointment. The taxi from the airport drove through the familiar streets of Cedar Springs. The downtown area had barely changed. The same hardware store my father frequented, the ice cream shop where we celebrated school achievements. The park where I had first conceived of building my own business while watching people struggle with early smartphones. Everything seemed smaller now, preserved in amber, while my world had expanded beyond recognition. When the taxi pulled up to my childhood home, I felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with apprehension. The white two-story colonial with blue shutters had a new roof, but was otherwise unchanged. The maple tree I had climbed as a child still dominated the front yard, and my mother's carefully tended garden bordered the walkway. For a moment, I was 10 years old again, running up those steps with a report card or art project, seeking approval I rarely felt I received fully. I paid the driver and took a deep breath before walking up the familiar path. Before I could knock, the door swung open to reveal James dressed in a cashmere sweater and pressed slacks, even though he was supposedly relaxing at home. "Finally," he said by way of greeting, checking his expensive watch. "We expected you hours ago. Did your flight get delayed or did you have to take the bus from the airport?" His eyes took in my deliberately casual appearance, a small satisfied smile playing at his lips. "Good to see you,"